Well, I was able to get started on the frame yesterday. I've got some video of that. We'll show you some clips. I was able to cut out all the pieces and use the pocket hole jig for the first time. Got all the pocket holes and then drilled and then assembled. So it worked out pretty good. Didn't use any glue. I don't think I needed in there, but it came out nice and square. I think the next thing I want to do though is route the back of that, put a chamfer on all the edges so it's not so sharp on the back where it kind of goes against the wall. And then maybe I want to take some stain and cover the front and at least the edges of it so it's not this lighter wood behind the barn board, because it might be visible. I'm recessing it by about 1 inch, but that might not be enough. I've got some more materials that came in. We'll show you some of those once we get into the shop. Otherwise, my plan is to get that router set up and get the routing done. It's going to be a big mess because I don't have any kind of a dust collection system for that. So the other thing I want to do today is probably lay out the barn board for the mounting holes I'm going to put on there. I might drill them and I might not. This is the thing that's got me the most nervous, is getting those drilled through there. But we'll see. Otherwise, after that, I'm kind of at a standstill. I'm going to have to wait to get some of the materials in. The state cutouts still haven't shipped from the company that I picked, but the copper did come in. And one thing I want to do with the copper, which might be kind of interesting, to bend it, since I'm bending it on the broad side. It's 1/8 inch thick and 1/2 inch wide. And it's going to want to bend on the 1/8 inch, and I want to bend it on the 1/2 inch side. So what I think I'm going to do is build a jig out of some really hard wood. I've got some walnut that was left over from the treads on our stairs here. Build a jig that I can put into a vise that has a groove in it, where I can squeeze it together and hopefully bend that copper a little bit. I don't need to make it curvy. I think it'll get curvy the way I'm planning to do it. So we'll see how that works out. So next thing, we'll show you some clips from putting the frame together, and then we'll watch a little bit of the routing that I'm going to get started on here quite soon. Well, it's day one on the construction, and I got all of the frame pieces cut, and I've actually started assembling it. So they were all cut, and I put all the pocket holes in for the pocket screws, and I've got one left to go. So we'll go ahead and watch how that works, and you can look at how this is assembled so far. There is the frame. You can see it's got, I don't know what they're called, struts that go across it there. There's 4 of them. They're spaced equally, and they're using the pocket screws that go down in there. They're kind of hard to see. Really nice. So on the other side, you don't see anything. This is the side that'll be towards the back of the barn board, so you won't see any of these when it's all finished. So go ahead and set the camera here and put the last few in. And last few screws for this last cross member. And for safety reasons, I've determined this is safe enough where I really don't need to have safety glasses. So I'll just go slow and easy with these, and working pretty good. I've got it clamped in as many places as I can. And as soon as the ratchet kicks in on the driver, you gotta stop. That's it, they're all in there. I'm going to go ahead and take the clamps off. So there it is, all assembled. I have to check now for the fit on the back of the barn board. I've already did that before I put any screws in there, so it looked pretty good. It's got a slight bit of a twist to it, but it's not bad. I think it's nice and square, which is the thing I was worried about most. I'm thinking it's gonna work okay. So we'll call that good at this point. So here is our barn board. We'll lay it down here. This is the orientation that will be on the wall, meaning top, up, bottom, left, and right. And even though this frame goes on the back, go ahead and lay it on there as if it were superimposed through the top of it, and see how it fits. The barn board actually has a slight cupping to it, so when it draws up tight on here, it should be reasonably good. It's probably gonna have a little twist to it, but hey, it's from 1881, and my framing method here was not super stout, so I think it'll work just fine. The next thing to do is to drill the holes, lay out and drill the holes through the barn board for those brass holders that will be on there, those light big round brass things, because they're going to be anchored into this piece of wood. I've got all those dimensions figured out, so I've got to lay out the holes that go, all 8 holes on the barn board, drill them very carefully, and no problem so far, but I'm worried that the wood, the barn board, is really fragile. I got to be real careful with it. Looks like I'm being rough with it, but I'm really being real careful with it, trust me. All right, I mentioned we got some more of the materials in. I want to show some of them to you briefly. The copper that I'm talking about, I bought in 2 14 or 18 inch lengths. Any bigger and it gets really expensive and it gets hard to work with. But it's 1/8 of an inch thick and 1/2 of an inch wide, and I want to bend it this way, not this way. So I got to bend it along this to make the path that I want to show. I'm going to come up with a jig, I think, that'll do that. But it's really nice copper. Comes from China, like everything else now. The other thing I've got with these little drawer pulls, they're super small, little buttons that are meant for like a little jewelry box or something. They have a threaded screw that mounts to the back of them. These are going to be on each of the state cutouts. They're going to be recessed. I use a Forstner bit to set them down in there. So just after the middle of the sphere is poking out, so they'll be able to see the states that we want to identify that we lived in. So that's all the materials. I think we've got everything to get started. Of course, we're waiting for the states. As soon as the states get here, we'll be able to do a lot more. Otherwise, what I'm going to do today is I've got this board, the frame, all set up here on my table. And what I want to do is take the router, and I've got to set a chamfer bit, and I've got a 45-degree chamfer bit. I'm going to set that in there and then do all the edges on the outside, and this would be on the side that's to the back to the wall. That way I'm expecting it to have a little bit softer edge when you have to handle it, and when it goes up against the wall, less chance of it doing anything like nicking your wall or putting a mark on there. And also because this might show through on some of the barn board itself, the cracks and maybe on the edges, I'm going to stain all the edges that's left after I chamfer it, and that'll get any on the back and then on the front side as well, so that if you happen to see it through the barn board, it'll be dark. I'll make a matching stain color that'll go with it, so it'll just be kind of the barn board behind it. I did a test setup with the router. I got a chamfer there, so it looks pretty good. This router, I haven't used it in a long time, years, and it's a lot quieter than I remember, so I'm going to skip the hearing protection right now because that gives me more feedback when I'm running this thing along here. If it turns out it's too loud, my watch will tell me and I'll put it back on. And the amount of chips flying were pretty big, so I might have to put the respirator on, but I think I can go without it for now. So this will be a first pass. And then I'll have to set the depth a little bit deeper to get the exact finished cut that I want. Then I'll come back and do it again. So I'll go ahead and get started here right now. Of course, going from left to right, against the directional spin of the bit. So we got our first edge done. Now I've got to remove my whole setup here, rotate it around and do the other edge. It's really nice. I'll flip this around and do the other ones, and maybe we'll come back when it's time to do some staining or setting up the layout for drilling the holes through the barn board.